Have any comments, questions, concerns, topics you'd like discussed on the show, or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, please email us at rpayne@onevoiceinc.org. That's rpayne@onevoiceinc.org. You can also search for us on Acast, Google Play, SoundCloud, and iTunes. Just look for Speaking with One Voice. Now, here's your host, Rodney Payne.
Hello and welcome to Speaking with One Voice. I am your host, the coach, Rodney Payne. I am so excited to be with you again this week on Speaking with One Voice, your leadership podcast that develops you and your leadership team, and is our privilege and pleasure to add value to you each and every week. I want to thank you for listening to us. I want to ask you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel at Rodney R. Payne. Also, follow us on social media. We're at Rodney R. Payne on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, our X rather. We're out there and we're at Rodney R. Payne. We need you to follow us and certainly on our YouTube channel at Rodney R. Payne as we continue to grow in this digital space and add value to you. You can always direct message us and we will be happy to address topics or concerns that you might have. So you can ask a question there. You can also if you're interested in being a guest on our show, we'd love to have you and talk more about this leadership thing. So today I want to get into a topic for today called the 4 hurdles that every leader must clear. It is my belief that every leader is going to face hurdles, and there are a whole lot more than 4 of them, but there are 4 hurdles that every leader has to clear. And so as a leader, it's important that we understand the challenges of leadership, the nature of leadership. We know that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less, according to John Maxwell. We believe that everything rises and falls on leadership. And so we have to understand that obstacles that are in our way or hurdles are what actually shape our leadership. And so one of the things that we want to talk about today as we give you these 4 hurdles is I want to talk about building concurrent solutions. So when you're hitting this hurdle and you overcome the obstacle, guess what? You're going to build some trust. So let's hop into this thing today and see what we can do as it relates to getting into these 4 hurdles. And I want you to look at yourself and challenge yourself to be able to address these hurdles successfully and navigate them to grow you and your leadership team. So hurdle number 1 is navigating uncertainty. The thing about leadership is not everything is certain. Not everything is black and white or concrete. So we have to understand that when we're uncertain, it becomes difficult for us to function. It becomes difficult for us to make decisions. It becomes difficult to gain momentum because when we're uncertain and we lead in an uncertain way, our team never knows what they're going to get. So it becomes difficult for them to follow. So I want to encourage you to make sure that you focus on, if you're going to overcome this hurdle of navigating uncertainty, you have to have some practical solutions. You have to have practical solutions. So because we don't know, because there is instability in the economy or in the environment or in our competition, you want to make sure that you are making your decisions based on data. That's right. Data-driven decision making is key to separating yourself in the marketplace. What do I mean? Well, if you don't take the time to do the research or the pre-work, you'll always be uncertain and you'll have to go by your gut. I am a firm believer that decision making, effective decision making, consistent decision making is what separates leaders from good leaders from great leaders. You become a great leader when you make effective decisions. And when you have a data-driven decision-making process or system, it's going to position you to overcome uncertainty. The second thing when it comes to navigating uncertainty is you have to have communication protocols. There has to be a consistent way of communicating. You don't want to be an emotional communicator. Passion is okay. Emotion gets you in trouble. You want to be consistent. You don't want to be all over the board. You don't want to have inconsistent communication, but you want to be consistent in how you do this. What that means is you got to establish some protocols put again a system in place. That's my method of leadership. It's system driven leadership, and we're going to have to put communication protocols in place. We release the information at the right time, at the right level, in a consistent way, so that we don't have to go back and change. What creates uncertainty in your team is when you're inconsistent in your processes. So in your communication, in your decision making, you want to make sure that you have some data driven, a practical approach, consistent in communication, to make sure that you are able to get the right message to your team. This will differentiate you as a leader. We're going to have uncertainty, and uncertainty as a part of it has landmines that are everywhere. How we navigate them is we establish our own processes for dealing with this by our how we make decisions, how we communicate, and how we move in times of uncertainty. So I want you to make sure that you get this first hurdle of navigating uncertainty. Secondly, I want to talk about, if you're going to navigate uncertainty, that's number one. But number two is you've got to learn how to manage conflicts. That's right, managing conflicts. So when we think about this, there are going to be conflicts as a part of your leadership journey, whether you invite them or not. There are going to be internal conflicts. There are going to be external conflicts. There are going to be conflicts that are a result of an action that you've taken. Some will be have no bearing on what you've done in the past, but nevertheless they show up as a conflict. At this point of contention, at this point of crisis, what do you do? If you're going to be an effective leader, you've got to clear this hurdle of managing conflict. And while I understand some people are peacemakers by nature, what's going to differentiate you as a leader is one who can manage conflicts, is that you're going to establish what we're going to call a conflict resolution framework. This is where we're going to understand that we have a system of managing conflict. And I'm going to tell you, as a leader, you see further, you see faster, you see before everyone else, and you typically will also see more than everyone else. So if you take this approach into your conflict resolution and create a framework, you will actually begin to address conflicts before they become conflicts. That's right, you'll have a framework that's conducive to effective communication because it's data driven, and you'll put them in this framework that will allow you to mitigate some conflict, eliminate some conflict, and miss some conflicts altogether. One effective tool that you can put in your framework is the DISC. The John Maxwell method of DISC is a great opportunity for leaders to grow. Why? Because it talks about behavioral and communication styles. So when you learn about behavioral and communication styles, then you can better package information on the front side, which will help you to avoid conflict. Not everything someone says to you it is a good indicator of how they necessarily feel. It could be how they communicate. And if they have a certain way of communicating and you've packaged the information in the wrong package, they took offense to what you said when what you really said wasn't offensive at all. It was just how you delivered it. And it could be also knowing your own communication style. There are going to be things that you have to decide about yourself that you have to deal with and mitigate so that you can increase your effectiveness in communication. So John Maxwell also says to know yourself, you have to grow yourself, in the 15 invaluable laws of growth. It's important that we understand it's not someone else's responsibility to learn how to communicate with me. It's my responsibility to own my communication style and make sure that I do what I can to pre-manage conflict, because if I know I'm confrontational, it's up to me to diffuse that before I go forward. If I know I'm rough around the edges, then I need to deal with that. If I know I'm extremely sensitive, I need to deal with that. If I know I'm data driven and I'm focused on facts and numbers only, I know that can desensitize me. I've got to deal with that as well. So when we're talking about managing conflict, we simply want to build a conflict resolution framework that allows us to understand those we communicate with and how they communicate and how we communicate. And what happens is some conflicts will never happen. Some will mitigate and get worked out and resolved. Others, we will know how to better resolve them based on the framework we've put in place. I like to give practical tips. Don't ever respond to emails, voicemails, text messages, or inboxes that frustrate you or irritate you in any way without giving yourself time to process properly and get the right format and forum for your response. Just because you received a conflict via a method of messaging does not mean that's how you respond. Sometimes it's better to have a face-to-face discussion. Sometimes you can get into a better situation. But as a part of your framework, you want to put yourself in the best position to manage conflict. So we've got a couple things here so far. Let's see if we can go to number 3. But before we go there, I'm Rodney Payne. I am your host, the coach. You're listening to Speaking with One Voice, where we help leaders and teams come together by leadership content that adds value to you. I want you to know that you can find out whatever you'd like to find out about us and contact and connect with us at rodneyrpayne.com. As a matter of fact, if you go there, I've got a free gift for you that will help you move the needle in your business today. So go check us out at rodneyrpayne.com. Now, let's move on to our third hurdle. Hurdle number 3 is ensuring consistent communication. Now, I want to look at this because we just talked about managing conflicts in a great way. And so now let's deal with how do we get consistent in our communication. So what our goal is we want to maintain clarity and engagement during challenging times and just as a way of our course of business. We want to make sure that we have a consistent way of interchanging, not exchanging information. Where our goal is not to get our teams to understand what we're saying, but we want to also understand what they're saying. So what we want is an interchange, not an exchange of information. So how do we do that? Well, we have to have, you guessed it, a framework for our communication. But in this case, I want us to build a framework that gives us the best opportunity to get feedback. The only way to measure if your communication is consistent or effective is if you're getting transparent feedback. So that's a challenge. That's a process because we say we want feedback, but when we get feedback that is less than favorable or it highlights some of our less than flattering attributes, then we find ourselves frustrated and cutting off lines of communication. But we want to build, because we're a good leader, we want to build a framework where feedback is not only accepted, it's expected, and it's respected. We have to respect the feedback we receive. Now, you're going to get feedback all over the board, some true, some untrue, but if you take out the best and the worst, you'll probably be left with some feedback that we probably should address. So I want to build this framework that we get feedback on our communication and what we're putting out so that everyone has some skin in the game. Everyone believes that they're valuable. They understand their value and the information they provide. Now, one of the things that practically can get us over the hump in this situation, and I believe every leader should do this, and you should train your leaders to do this and train your teams. You should have a training for active listening. Active listening, not responsive listening, but active listening. Active listening differentiates a good leader from a great leader. One who actively listens is not listening to respond, they are listening to understand. When you understand, you can better respond. But if you're listening for a response, then you might respond before you understand, which means you've responded prematurely. When you have a premature response, now you usually have an erroneous response, one that does not lend itself to providing an environment where consistent communication and effective communication is working. So I want you to take time to invest in active listener training for you and your team. You need to learn that skill and practice it. Depending upon your personality, you may have to process before you respond. You heard everything, you just don't respond immediately. Whereas other communication styles, they respond immediately. So they listen quickly and stop listening and often miss important parts of the communication. So I want you to understand that when we're going back to knowing ourselves and we learn how to listen actively, now we get better at responding. Do you see how this works? So I want us to really focus on developing a framework where feedback is the order of the day, ensuring that we have consistent communication. This is so important to our business and to our leadership. When we hear the heart of the matter, when we hear the details behind the solution or the thought process, it helps us to reach our common goals. So number three is we got to ensure consistent communication. Now, let's move to the last one. The last one is we want to build trust and accountability. Oh my goodness. We talk about trust and accountability. These are both uh, big asks, right? They are large in what we're looking for. But we talk about trust. Trust is the foundation of leadership. And listening to situations, what I've learned is that when you're going to be engaged with people and team members, you know they want to know, do you care about them? Can you help them? And can they trust you? That's John Maxwell gives that to us, and those three things there. Do you even care about me, or do you care about the bottom line? I will not trust you if I know you don't care about me. We are still people, and we're dealing with people, and people will always be our most valuable asset. Can you help me? They want to know in a process of communication, do you have the capacity to help them? A leader who cannot help their teams loses their value as a leader. But then the last part is, can I trust you? If I'm having a challenge as your team member, can I trust that you'll respect that process and look to help me? Or will you use that against me as we grow? Trust must be the foundation of effective leadership. You can dictate things and get desired outcomes, but is that truly effective if no one on your team feels valued? Is that what your brand stands for? Is your brand to get it done at all costs, no matter what people feel, say, or think? Or do you want a brand that is beneficial to those who work with you and those you serve? They have to be able to trust you as a leader. And then trust is important, and accountability is equally as important. I've known too many leaders who end up in situations where they have expectations of others, but they don't hold themselves accountable. Accountability simply means that you're answerable. It simply means that you have to give an answer to someone else. And so if you are a leader, you are answerable to those that you lead, but being answerable to those that you lead should never supersede your being answerable to yourself. There's a brand there that you should hold yourself accountable. And it shouldn't just be an emotional accountability. We should be dealing with processes and systems, or as we've used today multiple times, frameworks. We want to build an accountability framework that we understand what the metrics are, how we're measured, who's performing, who's overperforming, who's underperforming, how your contribution matters, and that has to be a transparent and consistent methodology. The framework is, this is the scorecard that we use, this is how we measure, and this is how we're all performing. Don't highlight someone else's deficiencies while concealing your own deficiencies. That's leadership that can't be trusted. We want to be honest. If the leader makes a mistake, you have to own that mistake. Owning your mistakes does not make you a leader who is not a leader, a good leader. It doesn't reduce your position. It doesn't say you're no longer the leader. It says you're a leader who owns the process, you're answerable, and you are going to go and fix what you messed up. That's what it says. When you're transparent, it changes everything, because now I know I can trust you. If you tell us that leadership did some things incorrectly, and as well as the team, I can handle that. A leader who blames the team but takes no responsibility or accountability for our failures or shortcomings is not a leader that anyone wants to follow. When you hear effective leaders, they may not have done it. I was watching a show recently, and there was a leader who had a situation and something happened. Well, what happened is is there was a jersey being revealed that was going into the rafters as it was being retired. The jersey was upside down. This upside down jersey, this young man's moment is there. We're going to retire your jersey. Family's there. The stadium is full. It's a big moment in the spotlight. And when they let the jersey unroll, it unrolled upside down, which by many accounts is a very dishonorable situation. Well, I didn't hear the person who hung the jersey upside down. I didn't hear from them. I didn't hear from the person that actually let the cord loose to let it roll down. I heard from the leader of the institution, and says, although I didn't do that, because it's under my watch, I am responsible. I should have known that. We messed up a moment. We could have done better, and we will do better. And I apologize for that. That's not throwing a person under the bus. There were no names given as to where the failure was. The bottom line was the leader took responsibility because the leader was answerable to all of the ones that were there. That's what leaders do, my friends. Oh my goodness. I hope this has helped you. As a quick recap, there are 4 hurdles every leader must clear: navigating uncertainty, managing conflict, consistent communication, and building trust and accountability. You've been listening to Speaking with One Voice. I am your host, the coach, Rodney Payne. I want to thank you so much. Please, 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 if you would go subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn your notifications on at Rodney R. Payne, or wherever you're consuming this content, we want you to subscribe. We want you to subscribe, turn your notifications on, and we would love to hear from you. Again, pick up your free gift at rodneyrpayne.com. I've got a free gift there for you to help you to move the needle in your organization. As always, it's my pleasure to serve you here on Speaking with One Voice. Thank you so much for being a part of our community and coming back each and every week. Listen, I am your host, the coach, Rodney Payne. Until next time, let's keep growing together.
You've been listening to Speaking with One Voice. Please remember to follow Rodney Payne on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Rodney R. Payne. We'd love to hear from you and get your feedback, so please feel free to leave us comments. And if you would, rate and subscribe to the podcast, we'd appreciate that as well. Don't forget to set up for notifications so you can get the latest updates and social media posts and get new podcasts when they're released. As always, use the hashtag Speaking with One Voice or simply SWOV on any of your social media posts. On behalf of Rodney Payne, thanks again for listening to Speaking